Thank you very much, Alan. Our next speaker was to be Keith Wilkerson, who is a staff member at Middlebury College. Keith has spent 12 years in basic research in the areas of neurophysiology and brain vascular research, and has a broad understanding of the time, energy, and funding required for such research programs. Unfortunately, Keith is unable to be here today, but he has generously provided us with his statement, which will be given by our Secretary, Alfred Anderson.
Peg Calder, hello everyone. Peg Calder contacted me when she was considering establishing a fund to support research into alcoholism. I've spent the last 12 years immersed in the world of basic scientific research, in particular exploring how neurons in the brain communicate with nearby blood vessels. So I guess you could call me a neuroscientist. Probably many people imagine a scientist as someone who sits at a lab bench watching a bunch of mice and interpreting their actions. In reality, a large part of my work is in planning and writing grant proposals. This is a reflection of the high cost of doing research, whether it is at the basic science level, in other words, looking at molecules, cells, and how the body functions at the most minute level, or whether it is at the research at the clinical level, looking at how effective drug A versus drug B is at alleviating some particular disease. So today I hope to communicate with you two main ideas. Firstly, that funding for basic research into alcoholism is desperately needed because of the enormous cost involved. And secondly, that funding from foundations such as FAR is key to enabling scientists to make great strides in understanding alcoholism so that we can better fight this horrible disease. Aside from a few genetic predisposition studies, the fact remains that little basic research exists on the biomedical causes of alcoholism. The general viewpoint of the public is that alcoholism is a social disorder, and that one who suffers from it is somehow another of weak character, lacking willpower, or a good upbringing. The problem with this viewpoint is that other neurological, psychological disorders, like depression, are clearly viewed by the public and medical communities as disease. Alcoholism sometimes isn't. Alcoholism is a disease. Funding, especially by government, often follows public opinion. This is perhaps the main reason that the National Institutes of Health provides significantly fewer and smaller, in terms of dollar amounts, of research opportunities to study alcoholism. This is why a small independent foundation such as FAR can make a tremendous difference, even with relatively small grants. FAR is looking to become a seed of change in this funding by providing small seed grants, just like the mustard seed. A new avenue of research added to an existing research project, or the award of a tiny grant to start a new project, may help to inspire researchers to take that next step sooner than they otherwise might have. Ultimately, I hope that funding from FAR can serve to inspire groups to try out new research targets. These are the reasons I passionately believe that FAR is a worthwhile cause. I should repeat that. These are the reasons that I passionately believe that FAR is a worthwhile cause. I encourage each and every one of you to consider making a donation or a pledge.
I would like to introduce now Zosha Anderson, who will share some of her personal experiences of alcoholism.
Hello, my name is Zosha Anderson, and I am a recovering alcoholic. I'm so very happy to be here today, and especially feel very privileged to be here in person, because 21 months ago, I was almost dead. I was in constant blackout mode. I couldn't remember where my car was parked. I pretended and made excuses for everything. I had lost 90% of my memory, and when tested, I came over that as an 87-year-old grandmother and under the child of 7 years old. And really, when I think back about it, I wasn't able to do anything. All I wanted to do was drink my red wine, hide it, and buy some more if I could. I hate to admit it, but I couldn't even control my bowels. I was constantly vomiting and retching in the toilet. I drove in a drunken state, not just once, but many, many times, until to my disgust, my family had to take my keys away from me and hide them. I even tried to jump out of Andy's rental car when he was going 70 miles an hour on Interstate 16 in Georgia, when he was trying to take me to a rehab center. I was a runner. I ran away from everything, and I ran away from my alcoholism. I had horrible accidental falls, each time hitting my head like a baseball bat and falling unconscious. I fell off a bar stool in Chicago Freddy's in Rancho Mirage. Another bar story is I slipped off a bar stool in Cincinnati Airport. 2 seconds later, I was handcuffed and taken to the Boone County Jail in northern Kentucky. To my horror. And that's just a few of my bar stories. I could go on, but what I really want to tell you is I wasn't really always this way. I didn't mean to become an alcoholic. It just happened to me. I didn't mean to catch it. And I'll tell you one thing. If I'd known what alcoholism was going to do to me, I would have rather shot myself. But it crept upon me through many years of delightful social drinking. It's powerful, it's baffling, and it's a cunning disease. I was born in Prague, Czechoslovakia. I came from a very old, ancient, privileged family. And because of the Iron Curtain, my parents left all their earthly possessions behind them in the country and planned a route of escape for us children. My sister and I posed as Italian children and slipped out of the country on the train, with our Italian governess posing as our mother. I remember every detail so well. We were taken to Old Ten, Switzerland to stay with my father's business friends until my parents came to fetch us 4 months later. We traveled to Italy then and stayed in an old abandoned hotel high up in the mountains called Campo di Fiori. And every day we would travel down by funicular. And I remember so well seeing little daffodils peeking out of the snow. It's just such a memory in my life. I also remember naked children playing under bridges and communist guards patrolling streets with red bandanas tied around their necks. Every day we would wait for hours in the freezing cold, waiting for visas to who knows where. My next memory is sailing on a giant ship into the New York harbor to Ellis Island. I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty. We were free, and I remember my mother's tears of joy. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and learned to be a true American. I attended Marjorie Webster Junior College, and I studied radio and television, the media. I met my husband, Andy, at Georgetown University at the Foreign Service School. And drinking was part of our life, as it is part of college life today. When I was 17, I was allowed to put my elbows on the table, and I was allowed to have gin fizzes at special parties that I went to. We married and began the most wonderful life, having 4 children and traveling the world like vagabonds. Andy went to work for Gulf Oil, which brought us to New Orleans, to Houston, to Tulsa.